Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to Sunday morning and the old cookbook show. Today, we're going to do another recipe from Duncan Hines, Adventures in Good Cooking. Now, Duncan Hines, for those of you that don't know, was a real person. He traveled the United States and Canada by car, visiting inns and hotels and restaurants, and then doing these travel guides. And he would recommend places to stop, stay, eat, things that you needed to see along the highways of the United States and Canada. And he started this in the 1930s, and this one was first published in 1936, Adventures in Good Eating, and the version I have here is from 1942. While he was traveling, he collected recipes that he published in these books called Duncan Hines Adventures in Good Cooking. And these started in 1939, and this version that I have here is from 1953. It is the 24th printing of this book. And so the recipe I've chosen today, I've chosen not because it's a great representation of this particular recipe. We're going to do a fried rice. It's not a great representation. It is a 1940s and 1950s representation of fried rice. We're doing it because this is a recipe that Duncan Hines got from Trader Vic at Trader Vic's restaurant in Oakland, California. And the recipe shows up exactly the same in one of Trader Vic's tiki cocktail books. It also has the same fried rice recipe, written a little bit differently, but same ingredients, almost the same method. And so we're going to start out. It's a very straightforward recipe. We're going to start out. Now, Trader Vic, if you're into tiki cocktails, you'll know who Trader Vic is. If you ever stayed at a Hilton hotel anytime from like 1954 to 1980, you'll have experienced the Trader Vic restaurant. He licensed the idea of his tiki bar to the Hilton Hotel Corporation. And they put them in a lot of the Hilton hotels. And it's sort of this, it's kitschy faux Polynesian with other Asian influences from China and Japan. And the recipes and the cooking was Asian inspired, but definitely formed by the American experience. This dish is no different. Growing up here in Canada, in the 1970s and 1980s, any small town that you went to in Canada had a restaurant that sold Chinese Canadian food or Canadian and Chinese food. Didn't matter what it said on the sign. You'd go inside and they would have exactly the same things, all sort of Chinese-inspired recipes, but informed by the Canadian experience. The United States was no different. They had the same sort of culture that grew up in small towns. And Trader Vic grabbed onto these recipes, and this is what he presented in a lot of his restaurants in this time period. So I've got these onions in the bottom of a wok with some oil, and I'm just supposed to sweat them out and soften them, but not brown them. Now, I am using a wok because I own a wok. Both recipes say to just use a frying pan. They don't mention the word wok. 1940s, early 1950s, wok wasn't something that was probably easy to buy in most parts of North America, and most households would not have one in their kitchen. Now, I've got that softened down. Next in goes some celery and mushrooms, and I've got more mushrooms than the recipe calls for. I had some in the fridge, and I had to use them up, so I'm using more than it calls for. Executive decision on that one. Okay, so while that's cooking, let's get the eggs ready. So I'm going to need 4 eggs beaten, and I'll just get them into this measuring cup. And just with a fork. Now, I know this is the kind of fried rice recipe that would drive Uncle Roger up the wall. So be it. I've worked in Hong Kong. I've been to Hong Kong probably a dozen times for work or pleasure. Julie and I spent 6 months on a train just traveling across China, stopping wherever we wanted and seeing what happened. We've been to Japan a few times. We've eaten fried rice all over Asia. I know how it's supposed to be made. I know sort of what a more traditional style fried rice is supposed to be. A home style fried rice in a lot of different cultures that use rice and have this basic meal. This isn't that, and it really isn't supposed to be. This really is North American fried rice. Straight up, straight down North American fried rice. Okay. Hit the wrong button on the cooktop. I didn't want to go into power flow. Now, it calls for shrimp already cooked. If I was doing a fried rice, and I've got a bunch of fried rice on the channel, I would have soaked this in a marinade, fried it, taken it out, and then added it back later. They're asking for cooked shrimp. And in this time period, it was very common to boil shrimp in a pot with water and either like an Old Bay seasoning or a pickling spice, and then using that shrimp in another dish like this. So that's what I did. I cooked the shrimp in a mixture of water and pickling spice and then drained it, hung onto it, and put it into the pan. And so I'm very cautious right now because I don't want to overcook the shrimp. And so next in, 4 cups of cooked rice. And so that's rice that I cooked yesterday. I put it out on a sheet pan to let it cool down, dry off, stuck it in the fridge. Of course, you should follow all of the safety advisories regarding how to cool down cooked rice so that you don't poison yourself. Next in, that was a bit of salt, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. And this is the only flavoring, other than what I cooked the shrimp in. That's not much soy sauce, is it? So I'm using a Kikkoman soy sauce. In the 1970s, in and around Toronto, it would have been this China Lily soy sauce is what you would have used. You want something probably pretty bold because there's not much flavor there at all. Now, I've got the heat on sort of a medium-high. They say to keep it on medium or low, so you're not really frying it all that hard, are you? And now we mix in the egg and cook it until the egg is cooked. Let me know down in the comments if you ever ate at a Trader Vic's in the heyday of Trader Vic's. They went away for a while. Most of them closed. They disappeared. And then sometime in the early 2000s, they started showing up again. People got interested in tiki cocktails, tiki culture again, and they started popping up. I mean, at one time, this was wildly sought after. People loved it. I don't know. We'll see what Julie says. Hey, Jules.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, friends. That looks pretty good.
In keeping with 1943.
A overcooked rice recipe?
Yes, and we'll eat it with forks. So, this recipe comes from the Duncan Hines cookbook by way of Trader Vic's, but it's also in the Trader Vic's cookbook.
Okay. Does Trader Vic say it's from Duncan Hines?
No, Duncan Hines says it's from Trader. So Duncan Hines is on his road trip, says it's from Trader Vic's. It's also from Trader Vic. So this is something that you would have eaten in the 1940s at the tiki bar, Trader Vic's tiki bar.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Very classic flavor.
It's that classic small town Chinese Canadian restaurant. You could have got this in Elmvale or Collingwood or Peterborough
Or Big River.
or Big River or
Saskatchewan,
Thunder
yeah.
Bay, all of those towns. And so this is not out of place in the experience of the 1940s, 50s, 60s,
No.
into the 70s. It's almost gone though, sadly. Replaced by
A modern version.
a modern,
Sorry, I spoke with my mouth full. A modern version.
yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, it's still tasty rice. It's rice. It's, you know,
There's no bold flavor. A little bit of the soy sauce flavor. That's it.
yeah. That is the only flavor.
Yep.
Right? It comes from that same, here's your rice, and you just put
You put something
soy sauce on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the life I lived for a long time as a little kid.
So, I mean, a representation of the past. I still kind of enjoy it because it's just comforting, not challenging. It's something that you just eat and you enjoy. And
Food is just meant to be
enjoyed.
You don't need to make it complicated, and you don't need to be judgmental about it.
No.
Right?
No.
You make it, you eat it, you love it. That's it.
It's simple. It's enjoyable. Comes together really quickly. You don't have to fuss about it. It's kind of stuck in the past, but it's still good. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon. As I continue to shovel
Eat
it
yeah.
into
Well,
my
yeah,
mouth.
that's right. You got the celery and the like just. Before you could get snap peas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.